Hello, Pastor Doug, back again with more questions and answers. Today's question is, Pastor, could you explain the different views on eschatology, the study of the end times, and the difference between them? In a 6-minute video? I don't know. Well, let me give it a try. A question like that would be more fitting for an animated video that went into extreme depth. Maybe one of these days I'll get around to doing one of those. I'll try to put some suggestions of books in the links in the bottom that you could check out that give the different camps. But let me see if I can do this in a very quick overview. And let me focus on the book of Revelation, in particular in Revelation 20 when it talks about the millennium. Because there's basically 3 camps when it comes to eschatology, at least where the debate is. Most Christians actually believe in the basics, and that you have to believe in, that Jesus Christ is in heaven now, he's going to return sometime in the future. When he returns, there's going to be final judgment, and there's going to be a new heavens and a new earth, and the saints are going to go in and live in God's new heaven and new earth perfectly forever. All Christians believe that, and you should focus primarily on that stuff. But of course, there becomes a big debate in eschatology, again, the study of the times, by asking really one question: when? And in particular, when you read in Revelation, when are these visions going to happen? And there's basically 3 camps. The first camp is called Premillennialism. Premillennialism. And that focuses on the future. That reads Revelations primarily about future events. Now, there's 2 different groups in premillennialism. There's historic premillennialism, which goes back to the ancient church, and there's something called dispensational premillennialism, and that's really a 19th century creation that focuses a lot on the modern state of Israel. But both those camps think that Revelation is primarily about the future. The second camp is called postmillennialism, and postmillennialism generally focuses on the past, that Revelation is primarily about what happened in 70 AD. And so that most of Revelation, not all, but most, was fulfilled with the destruction of the temple in 70 AD by the Romans and the closing of the Christian canon, the finishing of the scriptures. And so they read Revelation as mostly a historical text. The final camp, and I confess this is my bias, is called Amillennialism. And this argues that Revelation is primarily, not exclusively, but primarily about the present. And when I mean present, I don't mean necessarily just 2020, but the ever-present. That Revelation is speaking to all Christians throughout the ages, from Christ's first advent, his first coming, to his second advent at the end of the age. And so the majority of Revelation is speaking to the church always. I could go into a long discussion why I prefer amillennialism over postmillennialism, and in particular premillennialism, but I don't have the time for that. And by the way, I think this is very much an in-house debate. I don't think this is something Christians should divide over, but it is important. It does affect how you read the last book of the scriptures. It does affect how you understand how the New and the Old Testament relate. It does affect your politics and, let's say, how you view the modern state of Israel. So it is important, but it is secondary. Let me give you one piece of advice. When it comes to the book of Revelation, if there is a, quote, secret on how to read this wonderful cryptic book, I would argue it's actually Revelation 1:1. Let me read it to you. The revelation, literally in Greek, the apocalypse, which means the revealing. It's less about the world exploding and it's more about the revealing. So the revelation, the apocalypse, the revealing of who? Of Jesus Christ, which God gave him to show to his bondservants, the things which must soon take place. And he sent and communicated by his angel to his bondservant John. I would give, if I could give one piece of advice when it comes to eschatology, make sure you're focusing on Christ. If your eschatology starts leaving Christ and the gospel behind, you're doing it wrong. And if your eschatology is not rooted in hearing Christ, that is really problematic. If you're focusing on the more obscure parts of the Old Testament and trying to jury-rig and force them back into the New Testament, you're probably doing it wrong. The book of Revelation is about Jesus Christ. It says so in the very first verse. And so when you read from Revelation 1 to Revelation 22, you should be hearing Christ. You should be hearing his gospel. You should be hearing about his church. Now again, I'm biased. I'm an amillennialist. And if you're not, that's absolutely fine. Obviously focus again on the core things of eschatology, that Christ is going to come back and we should be ready for him, i.e. we should be constantly remaining faithful. But it is important to work these things out. And like I said, maybe sometime I'll do a more detailed video and go through the different camps. Like I said, I'll try to put some suggestions and books below from the different camps so that you can go take a look. Well, I hope that helps and hope Christ's grace is with you. Go in his name. Amen.